It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Did you watch every NHL game last night? Of course not. That's impossible. So Locked On brings you Locked On Game-to-Game NHL. With Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, we take you inside every arena to every game and give you the Locked On local experts insight. And by the end, it's as though you were at every game. Find Locked On Game-to-Game NHL on the Locked On NHL feed and follow today. Locked On Game-to-Game NHL, taking you to every arena for every game with the local experts. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy trade deadline, everybody, and welcome back to the Fantasy Hockey Podcast that you need. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, a big-time Friday edition filled with all of the trade deadline news and fantasy reaction that you need. Thank you for joining us. Happy Friday, and let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, a big-time Friday trade deadline edition. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. Steele is not here today, but your boy Big Flip, I'm here. I've got a bunch of information and takes that Steele isn't here to hinder me, isn't here to hold me down, although he does do a good job of that usually. We're going to get to all the news that you want to know on today's episode. John Quick traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. We knew that was coming. Tyler Bertuzzi to the Bruins. Big-time impacts. A lot of Bruins news. Pastrnak secures the bag. Hall on LTIR. I'm going to get to the big-time Bruins news. Granlund added by the Penguins. The Edmonton Oilers are making moves, and Connor McDavid continues to do special things. I want to talk about all of it and big-time bets at the end of the show, of course. I've got a few picks up my sleeve for this Friday board. We have some interesting and intriguing matchups that I'll talk about at the very end of the show. But thank you for joining me for this Friday episode. If you're a hockey fan or a fantasy hockey fanatic right now, Friday, trade deadline day, the deadline is 3 o'clock. There has been a lot of movement, probably an abnormal amount of movement ahead of the deadline, usually the day or two before that cutoff for deals to be coming through the wire is the busiest. It's been busy now in the NHL for over a week, and I'm sure fantasy GMs out there are appreciating when this time comes to an end and you can really focus in on this final stretch of the season, and it's pivotal. And covering some of the news that we're going to talk about today, and I'll get right into it with John Quick being traded to the Vegas Golden Knights. These are some of those pivotal situations that you could capitalize on if you act right and, of course, follow, subscribe, and like the podcast. That will help your cause. But Jonathan Quick is a two-time Stanley Cup winner. He is a Conn Smythe winner. He has over 55 shutouts in his NHL career, and he is a shoe-in Hall of Famer. He has been done dirty by this Los Angeles Kings team. Does it make sense to me on paper? Yeah, they got a better goalie, and they paid a very fair price for a guy in Korpisalo, and they added a D-man. Korpisalo can be a number one, and he's now with a much better team. We talked all about that on yesterday's episode. But focusing on this John Quick to the Vegas Golden Knights situation, there might be a fire lit under John Quick now, and that's what I wanted to come on here today to say, and there isn't Steele here to check me if I'm off the mark. I think John Quick might now be just a little bit PO'd. He's a little bit put off by this situation that just went down in the LA Kings organization. He has been bad this year. He has had his struggles. We know this. 11, 13, and 4 this season. One shutout, 3.50 goals against, and an .876 save percentage. But his career numbers are special, and I do think he's got a little bit left in the tank. the Vegas Golden Knights might be the perfect fit for this guy because of how balanced they are defensively and just how good they've been this season overall. I haven't necessarily been a believer, and I've been wrong. The Vegas Golden Knights have put themselves in great position. Barbashev being added, is that enough? Quick being added, is that enough? Those are big question marks that we are about to find out the answers to. But realistically, John Quick now, his value is something that we have to keep an eye on. I'm not ready to say it's one that's going to go up, but you can't help but feel that if he is going to a team that's very much contending right now in that division, lurking around and been in the first spot for the most part of the season, you can't help but feel that old Johnny Quick might get a couple of good opportunities to at least get your team some wins. That's where I want to leave it with this Quick situation, because we are keeping today's episode short and quick. My bad. I had to do it. Sorry, people. Thank you for riding with me for this solo Friday episode. There's a lot more to get to. I want to talk about the Edmonton Oilers a lot today on today's episode. I want to talk about this Mikael Granlund move to the Pittsburgh Penguins, their first move, a team that is also lurking, trying to make the most of a shrinking window for winning in the Metropolitan Division. We're going to get to big-time bets as well. But honestly, the Boston Bruins are now starting to scare me. And if you're an Eastern Conference, a fan of an Eastern Conference team, or realistically any team, you might be scared too, because now they've added Hathaway, Orlov, and in this most recent move, Tyler Bertuzzi, to a group that already included Marchand. And these guys like to play with edge. They like to play with sandpaper, and they like to really mix it up, and they back it up not only physically, but they back it up offensively. And this team was already doing historically good things. Linus Ullmark might run away with almost every single trophy that there is in the heading to the offseason at award season. And now they go out there and add Tyler Bertuzzi, who I know, Tyler Bertuzzi this year, okay, dealt with injuries. He had the COVID vaccination issues. There has been a lot to be said about this 28-year-old forward. 4 goals, 10 assists in 29 games this season. But I don't know. When I saw this trade be done by the Boston Bruins, they are just adding another good goal-scoring option. He can score big-time goals. He has proven in his NHL career 202 points in 305 regular season games that he can produce offensively. The Boston Bruins are the best team in hockey. I can't even think a single person out there would disagree with me. And they've made some very, very good ahead of the trade deadline moves to really put this team into what I think is striking position for the Stanley Cup. I'm going off, guys. This is a new setup for me, new microphone, new camera. I got new lighting. Thank you for riding with us the last couple of days with the bad audio and the bad visual. We are here for you guys, steady trying to improve. That's why I got the new setup here. That's why I got some new bets for y'all coming up at the end of the episode. I hope that those win and put some money in your pocket. This is a stressful time for hockey fans and for fantasy GMs. I'm going to break down the rest of the Boston Bruins news. David Pastrnak secures the bag. Taylor Hall on LTIR. What does this mean for what the Bruins do? Not done with the Bruins talk. Going to get to Mikael Granlund. Going to get to the Edmonton Oilers as well. But I got to pay these bills, people. And today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. You're looking for a delicious treat and you don't want all the fat and calories. You got to try a Built Bar. That's right. It is healthy and delicious. They are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right. Steele's favorite, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And I'm not sure how they do it, but they taste like a candy bar while maintaining those amazing macros. And what's even better, they have only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar while bringing 17 grams of protein, not 170 people. That would be crazy. You don't want all that. It is all of what you need with Built Bars. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking around about ordering at Built.com. And now you can go down to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your local Walmart today and pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. That's right, Built Bar, bringing the healthy deliciousness before or after the gym or as an anytime snack. You have to be checking out Built or Built.com or, like we said, Walmart or Sam's Club, baby, for all the fire from Built.
I just learned Discover credit cards do something pretty awesome. At the end of your first year, they automatically double all the cash back you've earned. That's right, everything you earned, doubled. All the cash back from eating at your favorite soup dumpling restaurant, doubled. All the cash back from the trip where you sort of learned how to snowboard, also doubled. And the best part, you don't have to do anything ridiculous to get it. Nope, Discover does it automatically. Seriously though, see terms and check it out for yourself at discover.com/match.
Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. This is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Today, just with your boy, Big Flip Livingstone, another trade deadline special, one in which the Boston Bruins continue to dominate and make very impressive moves, and not even one that augments the roster, throwing the bag at David Pastrnak today, securing one of clearly the best goal scorers in the game. He is just 26 years old, and now, he is getting $90 million over the next 8 years. They secure their future. David Pastrnak is an elite goal scorer, one that myself has not given enough credit to. The Boston Bruins have positioned themselves so nicely now. The thing that scares me if I'm a Boston Bruins fan, and I'm going off on a slight caveat here because I'm almost done talking about these Bruins, is how good some of the teams in the Eastern Conference are. And as much as there's going to be teams left on the outside looking in, good ones too in the Eastern Conference, there's going to be some teams that make it even one or two rounds that in other years might go all the way to the Cup final. And the Bruins might be one of them if they manage to even hit a little bit of a rut. And that's just really kind of ironic given how good they've been this season and how well the front office in Boston has positioned this team to win in the postseason, which continues my second couple of points very quickly before I move on to Granlund and the Oilers and big time bets. Is this situation on LTIR now with the Boston Bruins, with Taylor Hall being on LTIR, Foligno now out for a long term as well on IR. They get almost, I think it's $6 million in LTIR in cap space relief for Taylor Hall. So he's out a minimum of 10 games. That's what LTIR means. He has to at least miss that many games, I believe, or a certain amount of days. Don't quote me on that. You know me with the numbers and the specificities. But the point is, if he isn't able to come back, sure, that's a blow. The team is very balanced. They bring in Bertuzzi. Maybe that's a point. But if they are bringing in Bertuzzi because Hall isn't able to go and they do have that money, by the time you listen to this episode, people, the Boston Bruins might be making even more moves. You know, we record a little early. Thursday night is when I'm recording this. So Friday, by the time more news breaks, we could be missing out on something else huge from this Boston Bruins team. That's one of those things that I just had to come on here and mention, and just how good they've been at both ends of the ice, offensively and defensively, and just running away with it in the standings. Clearly been the best team in the NHL this year. 99 points for the Boston Bruins. Sorry for the awkward pause there, people. Trying to get these numbers out for y'all. That's impressive stuff. Hats off. The rest of the Atlantic Division, like Toronto and Tampa Bay, it's going to be a bloodbath. And then they probably have to take on Boston, most likely. This is going to be the kind of hockey that really separates contenders from pretenders. And very quickly, before I get to the Edmonton Oilers, this move, Mikael Granlund coming over to the Pittsburgh Penguins from the Nashville Predators. 9 goals, 27 assists, or 36 points. Okay, I understand. It's not been a great year. This guy's coming off a 53 assist season for 64 points. He's put up 69 points, 67 points, 54 points in his NHL career, and he really can be a passing first playmaker up the middle for this Pittsburgh team. And I'm a little bit intrigued now. I'm a little bit intrigued because the Nashville Predators clearly were sellers, and they clearly weren't getting it done offensively this season. We saw them sell off Nito Niederreiter. We saw them sell off Tanner Jeannot. They are maybe continue to sell off pieces. I just think that this Mikael Granlund situation, he's going to now play in the mix in Pittsburgh. We don't obviously know yet where he's going to slot in, but when I look at the whole lineup and I look at their depth up the middle, he might start to get some really nice looks. They might move him to the wing. He's proven in the past that he can play a little bit of wing. Mikael Granlund, to me, now that he's in the mix with some really elite, taking nothing away from the Nashville Predators, but some really elite forwards in Crosby, Gensel, Malkin, and otherwise in Pittsburgh, I'm intrigued by what this means fantasy-wise. Do I think this is a salvage the season type move for Pittsburgh in terms of their success in the standings? I don't think it really means much in terms of what they might be able to do. They're going to have to play better as a team first, but Granlund might start to chip in to get some points. And if they do start to really make a push, it might be the offense that has to get it done because that back end is not exactly pretty in Pittsburgh, and we can agree on that. Speaking of which, a team that the back end isn't exactly always pretty. The Edmonton Oilers are making a couple of smaller under-the-radar moves. Matthias Ekholm gets added a couple of days ago. Now they go out there and trade a draft pick. I believe it was a third-rounder for Nick Bjugstad. Some depth up the middle for the Edmonton Oilers team. Again, I think this is one of those teams, by the time you're listening to this episode, have probably made another move if they are smart. Because what we've been seeing from Connor McDavid, the most multiple goal games, 5 in a row in the past 30 or something years. He's doing Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky-esque type things. I was lucky enough as a smaller kid to watch Wayne Gretzky play 1 or 2 times, and that was at the end of his career. But running back tape and watching this guy, he's the GOAT, of course, Wayne Gretzky. We're not talking about that, but Connor McDavid is going to be right there. And the way he plays the game is just seriously special. And I think the Edmonton Oilers need to get their head around this opportunity that they might be blowing for a season that is just so impressive for Connor McDavid. I'm going to talk about him for my big-time bets in a few minutes for sure, but 52 goals, 66 assists, 118 points in 62 games, 275 shots, 8 game-winning goals. This guy continues to carry this team and put it on his back. Now they bring in the veteran Bjugstad. They bring in the veteran Ekholm. I think they need another piece. And the last thing I wanted to mention, because I have been clear about how good Connor McDavid and Draisaitl have been, and everyone who watches hockey knows this, they are not going to settle for mediocrity for much longer in Edmonton. And I really do think it's going to take some convincing from that front office in terms of making moves. I mean, convince them by putting the best team on the ice possible. That is what needs to happen. Before I get to big time, actually, you know what? I'll get to big time bets in a second and explain one of the best fantasy opportunities that I think is about to happen with this Edmonton Oilers because of the moves that they have just made. I want to talk all about it. And I got to talk about Indeed. Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed because Indeed is the hiring partner you can really attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you're guaranteed to find quality applications that meet your must-have requirements, or else you do not pay. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites hoping to find candidates with the right skills, you need to find one powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. That's Indeed. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like the Indeed Instant Match assessments and virtual interviews. Indeed is the place to go to get your top talent. And one of the things that we love about Indeed is it makes all of your hirings in one place and super easy. Those are the features that come with Indeed. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. The offer is valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/lockedon to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions need apply. You need to hire? You need Indeed.
This is David Harrison from the Locked On Commanders podcast, and this episode is brought to you by US Cellular. At US Cellular, they know phones are great, but they're not always great for us. Sure, they connect us to so much, but they also distract us from, well, us. The us that actually laughs out loud with each other instead of just texting it, that knows being in the same room doesn't always mean being together. So let's find us again by putting our phones down for 5 days, 5 hours, even 5 minutes. Join US Cellular in the Phones Down for 5 challenge. Find out more at uscellular.com/find us.
As Steele likes to say at this point, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to the Friday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, that is, and for making us your first listen. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And right now, your focus is on probably a whole bunch of different teams. Today at 3 o'clock, whatever time you're listening to this, it's been a wild ride of NHL and fantasy news over the last couple of days. And very quickly, before I just reel off my bets for this Friday board, the trade that the Edmonton Oilers made, moving Tyson Barrie, bringing in Matthias Ekholm, do I understand that it makes them better defensively? For sure. Do they have the offensive pieces to make up for it? This is clearly what the front office thinks, because now look at the opportunity that Evan Bouchard is going to get to run this first power play unit. This is a guy who I had my eye on all year, someone who that I sniffed around for a lot in my keeper dynasty leagues. And I still think that's a good idea because he's not done yet in Edmonton. And if he can really take the reins on this opportunity, look, he's had an up and down season. This is a guy who, you know me with the ages, he was drafted 10th overall. He's 23 years old. I think he's really just starting to figure it out a little bit. 3 goals, 18 assists this year, 121 shots on net. Yeah, is it a little bit of a down spurt from last year? 43 points, 205 shots on net. It is. But this team has improved. You bring in Bugstead, you bring in Ekholm, a couple of veteran presence. Maybe that helps out the goaltenders, and the confidence can now start to come out from this team from the back end forward. And that could mean huge things for guys like Evan Bouchard. Take some of that defensive stress off and watch what this kid can do offensively. I still think he can bring it. Like I said, 21 points this season. This opportunity for Evan Bouchard, if you are in need of a D-man, especially trying to bring in some offensive numbers, I think you need to go out there and take a shot at Evan Bouchard. Last game against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and I'm going to talk about the Oilers in a hot second. 19 minutes, 1 shot on net, +2, no points, but I'll take that first start because already in that minutes, his previous game, he played 14 minutes. So here we go, people. Jump on the Evan Bouchard opportunity. That's Uncle Flip's solo episode rip tip of the night. Wow, that was a lot there. Big time bets. We're here. We're running with the FanDuel odds. We're running with our sponsors from FanDuel. You know we want to make you some money. And I'm going to go very quickly here for y'all. Let me just make sure. People, these solo episodes, shout out to Steele for always doing them. They are intense. I hope you've been enjoying it. And if you have been, drop us in the comments. If you're on Spotify, if you're on Apple Music, head over and drop us a review, 5 stars, 4 stars. Let us know in the comments if you're feeling us. We really appreciate it. We say it every day because we mean it. Let me bust out the old notepad. I'm old school, people. Number 1 bet on Friday's board. And Friday's board is, again, a little bit of a tricky one. Only 5 games to taste into. Winnipeg at Edmonton. I've been talking about Edmonton the whole second half of this episode. And I have to go back to a team that just played let's just say one of their best games of the year while dealing with a very good Toronto Maple Leafs team that, they didn't show up, but the Oilers did in a big way. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins dusts off the gloves and takes care of Justin Hall. They played well. They scored goals, balanced attack up and down the lineup, getting it done. Yeah, okay, they're at home against a Winnipeg Jets team that has points in 7 of their last 10 games against Edmonton Oilers. So I understand that. But this Edmonton Oilers team is one that I think just needs a little boost of confidence. Maybe these couple of little veteran trades and a big win against the Leafs are enough to get it done. Winnipeg, 1-6 in their last 7 games. And I'm just really honestly like they play better against the Western Conference for whatever reason. 8-3 in their last 11, the Winnipeg Jets. Give me the Edmonton Oilers. I'll take the -152. I'm feeling that odd, and I'm feeling this spot for the Edmonton Oilers. And before I get to my lock of the night, which is from this same game, let me just jump over to the Devils at Vegas Golden Knights situation. These New Jersey Devils have been one of the best road teams in the NHL this year. Actually, they are the best road team. 22-4-3 this year, and they're just 11-4 over the last 15 games away from home. They like playing on the road, even though this is a tough Vegas spot. The New Jersey Devils also have 6 of 7 wins against the Western Conference. I know these are some interesting stats. The Devils have beast moded in their last 2 games for 14 goals. Okay, the first one was Philly. The last one was the reigning Cup champs. And they should have Timo Meier in the lineup Friday night. That's another caveat. I love the Devils on the money line. -109, also getting a really, really good number. Vegas Golden Knights team not scoring a ton of goals lately. And this other side scoring a whole boatload. That's not exactly a hot take, but give me the Devils on the money line, -109. And I can't talk about Edmonton Oilers heavy episode without rounding out my bets with the best player on the planet and the best player that I've ever seen play the game, Connor McDavid. Connor McDavid over 1.5 points. Multi-goal games is where you have to bet with people if you're betting anytime point. If there is a betting platform out there giving you a half McDavid point, there's going to be no value. You have to take it over 1.5 points, and that's what I'm comfortable doing. Given how good this player has been, the historic records are just going crazy. He's the fastest to 80 points here, other than Lemieux. He's the first guy scoring 5 straight games with multi-goal games since Lemieux, Gretzky, Jari Kurri numbers. This is crazy. And in 27 career regular season games versus the Winnipeg Jets, I am looking at my notes, people. 12 goals, 35 assists for 47 points in 27 career games, including 3 game-winning goals. McDavid goes off for my lock of the night, over 1.5 points. That means 2 or more points. Thank you for making today's episode your first listen, just like you make us your first listen every single day, and for tuning in for the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, a solo edition with just your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Steele will be back on Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll be here for a couple more solo episodes. Make sure you go over and make your second listen, Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every listen, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers you across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL on YouTube, the Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for riding with me for today, everybody. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back again for Monday's episode. Good luck with all your bets out there.
Hey, Prime members, you can listen to this Locked On podcast ad-free on Amazon Music. Download the Amazon Music app today. Did you watch every NHL game last night? Of course not. That's impossible. So Locked On brings you Locked On Game to Game NHL. With Locked On Game to Game NHL, we take you inside every arena to every game and give you the Locked On local experts insight. And by the end, it's as though you were at every game. Find Locked On Game to Game NHL on the Locked On NHL feed and follow today. Locked On Game to Game NHL, taking you to every arena for every game with the local experts. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.